The little voice in the back of your head. You know, the little voice in the back of your head is important. Because when you have that voice in the back of your head, you know, it really stops you from simping out to doing things that compromise your principles, compromise yourself. And for me, you know, that little voice in my head, in the back of my head, was born out of the experiences that I had. You know, having a lot of women on deck, running through chicks. And, you know, how that affected my level of expectation. You know, when you've had experiences having multiple women on deck, or having multiple women at your disposal, it creates in you high standards and a low tolerance for BS. And once you have that mindset, it stays with you for the rest of your life. You carry it everywhere you go. You carry it when you're dealing with women here in the States. You carry it when you're dealing with women overseas. You carry it in any situation when you're dealing with women. And in reality, it's a saving grace because it number one, it prevents you from compromising yourself in order to, you know, sleep with women or be with women. And it's an asset because it creates in you a level, like a certain confidence that just subconsciously attracts a woman, you know. And so, you know, when I see these guys that are, you know, going overseas for the purposes of hooking up with prostitutes, you know, I know they don't have that voice in their head. And not only do I know they don't have the voice in their head, but I know that they've never been in a situation where they've had multiple women on deck, you know, had the option of being with multiple women for free. Because if they did, you know, they wouldn't be able to engage, you know, in prostitute mongering, hooking up with prostitutes. Because, like I said, you know, they would have that voice in the back of their head that would say to them, "Hey, dude, you know, why are you, you know, paying for pussy when back in the day, you know, back when you were going around town, or back when you were in college, you were running through chicks and you didn't have to spend a dime. You know, why are you paying for pussy when you know, you could have chicks come to your crib or your spot just off the strength of a text message, you know?" So when I see these guys engaging in prostitute mongering, I know they don't have that little voice in their head. I know they haven't had those experiences, because in life, when you're accustomed to a certain lifestyle, it's very hard to regress, you know, and it's impossible to regress. You know, why do you think that, you know, when women that are married to guys that are wealthy, why do you think the courts are so favorable to wives that are married to wealthy men? Because they know that it'll be very difficult, you know, for a woman who's divorcing her husband, who is wealthy, to regress to a lifestyle that's beneath where they're currently at, that they've become accustomed to. That it'll be impossible for them to accept it. You know, so when I see guys that prostitute monger, when I see guys that have accepted this lifestyle, I know they don't have the experience of being a true player, of having multiple women on deck, of having the option of sleeping with women for free without having to pay for anything. They don't have it, you know, because it would make sense. You know, why would they go from having multiple women at their disposal, having multiple women on deck, and then lowering themselves to the point where they have to pay for pussy, you know. And like I was saying in my previous video, paying for a short interval where they can actually get the pussy. You know, whereas back when they were a player, back when they had women at their disposal, they could, number one, get the pussy for free, and number two, there was no fucking time limit, right? You know? And so when I see these guys, you know, like back to my original point when I said the voice in the back of your head, that voice in the back of your head is born out of your experiences. It's born out of the standards that you set for yourself based on the experiences that you've had, the sense of entitlement that you have, you know, coming from a position where you've had options. And so when I see guys who are engaging in prostitute mongering, I, number one, know they don't have that voice in the back of their head. And if they don't have that voice in the back of their head, they haven't had the experiences that would cause them to have that voice. Which means, essentially, that these guys are losers, they are lames, they are simps, and they've always been simps. You know, and they've never had those experiences. Because if they did, it would be very difficult for them to reconcile with themselves, that they would have to lower themselves to the point where they actually have to pay for pussy, when previously they were in a position where they didn't have to pay for a damn thing. You know? So that's number one. And then number two, you know, the fact that a lot of these guys, you know, parade the woman that they've been with, you know, all over YouTube and online. And I think that really stems from a inferiority complex and having to prove yourself, because, you know, when you're, you know, taking pictures of bitches, you know, it's all about proving something to someone else, you know, say just to prove to someone else what you're getting, prove to someone else what you're smashing, you know, and let's just look at the fact of look at the action of having to feel like you have to have something to prove, right? If you feel like you have something to prove, obviously you don't feel that other people perceive you as having the qualities and the ability to do certain things naturally. You feel that other people aren't perceiving you like that, so you have to prove to them that, hey, I can do it, you know, because you feel like without proof you have no credibility, right? And if you feel like you have no credibility, then you obviously have an inferiority complex. You know, and someone who has an inferiority complex has no confidence, and someone who doesn't have any confidence cannot be a player. So the fact that these guys have to throw pictures of women they've been with on YouTube and on other websites, I mean, that shows you right there that they don't have they're not players. They don't have the confidence, because what is the main characteristic of a player? The main characteristic of a player is confidence. You know, and a true player, you know, doesn't have to prove anything to anyone, you know, and secondly, you know, one of the main aspects of a true player is not giving a fuck, which is what women love. Women love a guy who just doesn't give a fuck, right? Who doesn't give a fuck, you know, and a guy who doesn't give a fuck about women and what women think. They don't give a fuck about what men and what men think, and they definitely don't give a fuck about proving anything to anybody. The only thing that they give a fuck about is themselves and their dick and what the hell they're trying to do and how they're trying to get it in. That's the only concern running through their brains. You know, so someone who has something to prove, obviously gives a fuck. You know, they give a fuck about how other guys are perceiving them. You know, so, you know, I mean, those are two of the main ways that, you know, I can pretty much tell that these guys who are prostitute, number one, are prostitute mongering, and number two, you know, are throwing pictures of the chicks that they're hooking up with all on YouTube, on the internet, you know, that they're lames, that they're losers, you know, because number one, they don't have that little voice in their head that's saying to them, you know, why are you paying for pussy when you know, previously you were at a position where you had multiple women at your disposal for free. They don't have that little voice in their head. They haven't had those experiences, so they've always been lames. And number two, they have something to prove, you know, and I can tell that by the fact that they have to, you know, show proof of the pussy they've gotten, you know, to other guys, you know. And let me tell you, I ran through bitches. You know, I ran through bitches in college, and I ran through bitches after college when I started doing the bulk of my traveling. You know? And I never gave a fuck about the chicks I was fucking with. I never gave a fuck about what other guys thought. You know, I was in it to get a beat, to get a nut, and that was that. You know? I didn't, you know, all the chicks, when I look back at all the chicks I ran through, you know, did it ever occur to me after smashing any of them to pull out my camera phone and take a photo, you know, and show my friends and say, hey, Leah, look at what I've smashed? Like, fuck no, because I didn't give a fuck about the chicks, and I was doing it for me because I wanted to get it in, because I wanted to get a nut, and that was that, you know. So, I mean, I guess I'm making this video just to kind of really break down a lot of these losers, you know, these guys who engage in prostitute mongering, and show how a lot of them are losers and simps, you know, and how I personally can tell that they're losers and simps, and how you can tell, you know, because they don't have that voice in their head. You know, they obviously have something to prove, you know, and just having those two attributes show you right then and there that these guys are lames, you know, because nowhere in my career have I ever had anything to prove, because when I was going out getting bitches, it was for the purposes of getting my dick wet. That's it. That's all. Okay? There was no proving anything to anybody. You know what I'm saying? And after having the experiences that I did, in any new situation that I found myself with woman, I always had that voice in the back of my head, you know, why, you know, go on a date with this chick. Why go on a date? In the back in the day, you weren't going on dates. Pay for bitches. Why pay for bitches now when you weren't paying for bitches back in the day? You know. So you know, I guess like I said, it's been a saving grace because it's kept me, you know, on the same path of being being able to run through chicks, of having that mindset, maintaining that confidence, maintaining that sense of entitlement, and not lowering myself to the position of these motherfuckers who have to go overseas and pay for pussy. So I guess that's all I gotta say.